Good morning, folks. This is Brother Allen with Bible Commentary. We are continuing on with our study of the second coming of Christ in the book of 2 Thessalonians. Today, we are going to be addressing the man of sin. Paul told the Thessalonians that two things must happen before the return of Christ would occur. Number one, there would be an apostasy, a great falling away of the apostate Jews who formerly became Christians. Secondly, Paul said to the Thessalonians, the man of sin would be revealed. Even though he had previously talked to them, he had also reminded them that this must take place first before the second coming. So let us turn to the description of the man of sin, given by the apostle, and endeavor to discover, if possible, whether there was any individual then existing in the Roman Empire to whom it may apply. The description requires that we should look not for a system or abstraction, but an individual man. He is evidently not a private, but a public person. The powers with which he is invested imply this. He is a personage holding the highest rank and authority in the state or the government. He is a heathen and not Jewish. He claims divine names, prerogatives, and worship. He pretends to exercise miraculous power. He is characterized by enormous wickedness. He is the man of sin. In other words, the incarnation and the embodiment of evil. He is distinguished by a lawlessness as a ruler. He had not yet arrived at the fullness of his power when the Apostle Paul wrote this. There existed some hindrance or check to the full development of his influence. The hindrance was a person, was known to the Thessalonians, and would soon be taken out of the way. The lawless one, the man of sin, was doomed to destruction. He is the son of perdition, whom the Lord shall slay. His full development or manifestation and his destruction are immediately to precede the parousia, or the return of Christ. The Lord shall destroy him with the brightness of his coming. With these descriptive marks in our hands, can there be any difficulty in identifying the person in whom they all are found? Were there three men in the Roman Empire who answered this description? Were there two? Assuredly not. But there was one, and only one. When the apostle wrote, he was on the steps of the imperial throne a little longer, and he sat on the throne of the world. It is Nero, the first of the persecuting emperors, the violator of all laws, human and divine. The monster whose cruelty and crimes entitle him to the name, the man of sin. It will at once be apparent to every reader that all of the features in this hideous portrait belong to Nero, but it is remarkable how exact is the correspondence, especially in those particulars which are more recondite and obscure. He is an individual, a public person, holding the highest rank in the state, heathen and non-Jewish, a monster of wickedness, trampling upon all law. But how striking are the indications that point to Nero. In the year when this epistle was written, say between AD 52 and AD 53, at that time Nero was not yet manifested. His true character was not discovered. He had not yet succeeded to the empire. Claudius, his stepfather, lived and stood in the way of the son of Agrippina, but that hindrance was soon removed in less than a year, probably after this epistle was received by the Thessalonians. Claudius was taken out of the way, a victim to the deadly practice of the infamous Agrippina. Her son also, according to Soentius, being accessory to the deed. But the mystery of lawlessness was already working. The influence of Nero must have been powerful in the last days of the wretched Claudius. The very plots were probably being hatched that paved the way for the ascension of the son of the murderers. A few months more would witness the advent to the throne of the world of a miscreant whose name is embedded in everlasting infamy as the most brutal of tyrants and the most vile of all men. The remaining notes of the description are no less true to the original. The claim to divine honors, the opposing and exalting himself above all that is called God, or an object of worship, his seating himself in the temple of God, showing himself to be God, all are distinctive of Nero. The assumptions of divine prerogatives indeed was common to all the Roman emperors. Divas, God was inscribed on their coins and statues. The emperor might be said to exalt himself above all that is called God, or an object of worship, by monopolizing to himself all worship. This fact is placed in striking light in the following remarks of Dean Howson. The image of the emperor was at that time the object of religious reverence. He was a deity on earth, and the worship paid to him was real worship. It is a striking thought that in those times, the only two genuine worships in the civilized world were the worship of a Tiberius or a Nero on the one hand, and the worship of Christ on the other. The attempt of Caligula to set up his statue in the temple of God in Jerusalem had driven the Jews to the brink of rebellion, and it is just possible that this fact may have given their peculiar form to the description of the apostle. Certainly, it suggested to Gratius that Caligula must be the person intended to be portrayed. But the date of the epistle renders this opinion untenable. Nero, however, came behind none of his predecessors in his impious assumption of divine prerogatives. Dio Cassius informs us that when he returned victorious from the Grecian games, he entered Rome in triumph and was hailed with such acclamation as these: Nero, the Hercules, Nero, the Apollo, thou August, August, sacred voice, eternal one. In all these we see sufficient evidence of the assumption of divine honors by Nero. The same is true with respect to another note in these delineation, the pretentious to miraculous powers, whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, says verse 9. This pretension follows almost as a matter of course from the assumption of the prerogatives of deity. It is to be supposed that the imperial divus would be credited with the possession of supernatural powers. And we find a remarkable sidelight thrown upon this subject in Revelation 13, verses 13 through 15. At this stage of the investigation, however, it would not be desirable to enter into that region of symbolism, though we shall fully avail ourselves of its aid in the proper time. Further, the man of sin is doomed to perish. He is the son of perdition, a name which he bears in common with Judas, and indicative of the certainty and completeness of his destruction. The Lord is to slay him with the breath of his mouth, and to destroy him with the appearance of his coming. In this significant expression, we have a note of time when the man of sin is destined to perish, marked with singular exactitude. It is the coming of the Lord, the parousia, which is to be the signal of his destruction, yet not the full splendor of that event, so much as the first appearing or dawn of it. Alfred very properly points out that the rendering brightness of his coming should be the appearance of his coming, and he quotes the sublime expression of Milton, far off his coming shone. Bengel, with the fine discrimination, remarks, here the appearance of his coming, or at all events, the first glimmering of his comings, are prior to the coming itself. This evidently implies that the man of sin was destined to perish, not in the full blaze of the parousia, but at its first dawn or beginning. Now, what do we actually find? Remembering how the parousia is connected with the destruction of Jerusalem, we find that the death of Nero preceded that event. It took place in June AD 68, in the very midst of the Jewish war, which ended in the capture and destruction of the city and of the temple. It might therefore be justly said that the appearance or the dawn of the parousia, or the coming of Christ, was the signal for the tyrant's destruction. Folks, I'm going to stop right there. Next time we will continue with part 3 of the man of sin revealed. Until then, may God bless us all.